Hi, this is Caroline with Caroline's Cause Corner. Today I have my special guest is Robin Athey, who has a specialized coaching practice that is really poignant for our times right now. Welcome to Caroline's Cause Corner, Robin. How are you?
Thanks, Caroline.
So,
I'm
how are
listening.
you doing right now
Ooh.
during COVID pandemic? Kind of crazy time for our culture, and that's exactly what you do in your coaching with leaders and senior level people that are, actually you're like leading the leaders, right?
Well, helping leaders, helping founders to navigate really complex times, really strong times. Yeah, most of the people I work with are working in environments that are moving fast and changing fast, and this is this is a doozy
Yeah.
for all of
so
us.
so you work with these leaders and founders of companies, and all kinds of you've worked with all kinds of major corporations, and it's within, like you said, where they're doing work that is going so quickly in trying to navigate their way in the chaos to be good, effective, heart-centered leaders, and for great results, right?
Yeah.
Also great personal results, so they don't lose themselves in the midst of all of their leading. However, in a situation like we've been in with the pandemic, and then with the chaos of the last couple of weeks, how does that even up your game of how you would coach somebody in a time like this? So their businesses were maybe shut down or reopening. There's this
Yeah.
interesting time. Are people going to be working from home? Are they going to come back in the office? And then we have chaos on top of chaos. So how does one navigate that and be a great, effective leader?
Yeah, I notice I'm wanting to take a deep breath because we're all in it together, and that's exactly, I mean, like how to navigate this period without really losing your own compass, without losing connection with yourself in service of something that's greater. I mean, that's exactly what we're doing. And a colleague of mine said last week, he said, I realized like the period that we're in right now in the United States is a bit like 1970, 1917 with the Spanish flu epidemic, and 1928-29 with the Depression, and then 1968 with the Civil Rights Movement, like all happening at once
Exactly.
in a period of months. And at the same time, we're navigating so much uncertainty in our life because none of us really knows what our life is going to look like in the next 6 months. And it's become a little cliche to say like, oh, the only certainty is that things are going to change, but that's really what we're in right now. And on the one hand, what I do is to help founders and leaders and whoever comes, to really navigate with some clarity in service of something greater, in service of a purpose, something that really lights them up. And then how do you lead yourself and how do you lead others when we really don't know where the world's going? And on the one hand, we need a compass more than ever. And on the other hand, the brain really doesn't like uncertainty at all. In fact, the uncertainty is relegated to fear. Like the tiger, the proverbial tiger in the bushes. We're like constantly looking for the tiger in the bushes. Are the way that our brains are programmed when we're in uncertainty because of the heritage of our brain. We're still looking for a kind of tiger in the bushes. Our default is to go to fear. Our default is to go to reactivity. Our default is to go to defensive survival mode. And that's really kind of the period that we're in right now. This beautiful quote from an author named H.P. Lovecraft from 1927. He wrote that the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is the fear of the unknown. It's fear that gives rise to all or other, or it's unknown is the fear that gives rise to all other fears. And so here we are.
Yeah. So do you find that leaders and founders are wired differently?
Mm.
and you have to work with them in a different way. Okay, so if everybody's wired for that, the tiger in
Yeah.
the bushes, leaders and people that are, at the top of their game, how are they wired differently than people that are, not that, don't strive to be there, or aren't there because of hard work or whatever the case? Is there a difference in the neurological firing, or
Yeah.
pathways they have?
Well, I'll tell you something that I've noticed working with leaders and founders over the years. On the one hand, there are no, I can't give like a stock answer for everyone. Leaders and founders do seem to have a certain capacity that not everyone has. And it's not surprising, probably, that a lot of leaders and founders and consultants, I grew up in consulting, actually have had some hardship in their lives somewhere along the way. Um, they've had what has classically been called, crucibles, these tests that we have in life, and we pass them over and over and over again, and it creates a kind of a resilience until it doesn't anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And for a lot of leaders and founders, there's both this kind of greater capacity to like navigate hardship and change, and um, at the same time, everyone has a breaking point. And a lot of leaders and founders, in particular, can push themselves right up to the edge, and to right up to the point where their nervous systems really can't take in anymore, and it's not uncommon.
So then what happens? What's the result of that?
All sorts of things. It really depends on the founder or the leader, of divorces and heart attacks and
Yeah.
breakdowns and
all the
uh,
all the negative, all the things that too much stress does to a person's body.
yeah,
And they're human too. We forget sometimes that our leaders and founders of companies, and the Elon Musks of the world and the Steve Jobs of the world, and they're all human too, and they can
yeah,
only take so much.
yeah.
So given the this last few months of the pandemic, has your practice um, changed in any way? Are you finding that you're needing to pivot in terms of the counseling that you're giving, the coaching, I guess, that you're giving?
Yeah. Um, I would say that there is definitely anxiety is showing up a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Again, uncertainty is, uh, probably at the core of a lot of anxiety disorders. The brain scanning the environment, looking for a direction, looking for a place to go. I'm lucky in that the nature of a lot of the work that I do with founders and leaders is very much oriented towards finding clarity and direction. It's oriented towards having a coherent strategy, having a coherent kind of plan, and aligning that with a sense of purpose for leaders and with their teams. So, the great news is that we're already on a path that allows the nervous system some coherence. We're in the midst of that. And I mean, I'm delighted to say that for a lot of my clients, who I often work with over a long period of time, we've developed a lot of resilience for my ongoing clients, where they have practices that they can come back to again and again, that help them to regulate, in clinical terms, to regulate their nervous systems. I love that word. I think it's so useful. My partner thinks it sounds a little clinical, but yeah,
I
to
think
help them be in
people
their
are
bodies.
people are getting it. I think that term has actually become much more less clinical and more part of our vernacular, because people, even my kids, understand their nervous systems, or when they get text, that
Yeah.
their responses are based on that. They're taught that. So I think possibly that our world has going towards being more intuitive, and more open to these vulnerabilities that we have as human beings, right?
Totally.
So,
Yeah.
And that actually leads into my next question is, do the people that come to you, um, are they already on the path of whatever I've been doing isn't working? I mean, like anybody else that goes
Yeah.
to counseling, goes to a coach,
Yeah.
I need a boost. But these are people that are, I can do it all. What is typically sort of their breaking point where they are looking to change themselves so they can change their experience with their companies and things like that?
Yeah. That's a great question, Caroline, because people come to coaches for different reasons. And I seem to attract people who are ready to make a change. In fact, a lot of what I do is guide people through change and sometimes pretty transformational change. And I'm lucky to attract people who are ready for that. Not everybody is ready for that. And not everybody is, I would say some people aren't ready for that because they don't want to be in transformational change, because they don't really want to be subject to that. But sometimes it's not the right time of our life.
Mm-hmm.
And people come to me often when something that they're doing isn't working anymore and they're wanting some kind of transition. So, as I scan my clients, a common theme might be, I've been running this startup, it's been doing really well, and there's something else that I really want to be doing now. Or that's actually a really common one. Or I want to up my game in some way. And, especially in times like these, for a lot of people, we're being called forth to go beyond what we're already doing, to step up our game and to be, serving in new ways. Most of my clients have a pretty strong sense of purpose and a sense of really wanting to do some kind of good in the world. Um, that's a common theme. Some of my clients come when, life as they know it is just broke down and they don't even really know what's happening. They just know that they're feeling a lot of anxiety. And they've been very successful, and all of a sudden they're in a life transition in some stage where yeah, they're wanting to get clear about the next chapter. They're not quite clear what's happening, or their leadership has broken down. What used to work doesn't work anymore. Yeah.
So, um, I hope you don't mind this question, but there are a lot of coaches out there, and I
Yeah.
really want to highlight what you do and how it is different than any other coach you can find, on the internet, or someone
Mm,
else has like got a great referral. Like, what is your specialty that nobody else is really doing?
yeah. Well, one of the things that I do that very few coaches do is that I bring in an understanding of the nervous system and trauma in particular. At 33, I was in a pretty senior role, in a leadership role. And I, at the time, uh, in the closet, had an addiction, and nobody knew about it but me. And I kept it in the closet. On the surface, I was in this high flying role, corner office, 5-story townhouse at 33, the car, all of that, traveling around the world. I had lived already and traveled globally a lot and worked globally. And inside, I was a bit of a mess. And, a lot of what I do right now is to support people, to support leaders. I work with a lot of young leaders, I would say like 27 to 45. I support them in the way that I needed then. I need a quality of support that goes beyond what most coaches can offer. In a large way, we do what we often need for ourselves in some way, and I work with clients in a way that is at that level, with that quality of understanding that could meet somebody who was a bit of a mess inside, as much as I put on the mask to the world. And so this path led me through leadership roles, and then eventually to study somatic psychotherapy and trauma for 10 years. And I went very deeply, and I studied across the best multi-year programs, the best practices that I knew, to understand how to work with shame that I had felt, how to work with um, a nervous system that just felt really uncomfortable to be in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the time. how to be in my body in such a way that I could not only be in my body, but have a really clear sense of direction of next steps in a way that feels aligned with values, in a way that is seeing the big picture and is more creative than reactive. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, that's true. A lot of, I mean, people are inventors, invent things that they feel a need that they can't find. You're
Yeah.
filling a need that wasn't there for you.
Yeah.
Very unique need. You know, a young leader. You know, startup people are typically, well, they're all ages, but
They're
you
all
know,
ages.
go. You know, you're going, burning the midnight candle, and yeah, you
Totally.
forget.
I, yeah, I encounter a lot of fried nervous systems, not just in the founders and the CEOs that I work with or any leader, but in their teams too. And
Oh, sure, it all falls down, rolls downhill, right?
yeah. And there is this great, you know, the kind of ethos of startup is, you know, just like pedal to the
Right,
metal, let's go, you know, and there's a pride, there's a badge of pride that goes along with that. And at what cost, you know, at what
right.
cost?
So, talk about really quickly some of the clients that you have had that you can talk about because you have had an incredible career, and yeah, I'd love for you to share some of the companies you've worked with and some of the fate. Maybe you have like a anecdote of one of them that you'd like to share.
I mean, I've worked with a lot of corporations. I started in the 80s doing turnarounds, startups and turnarounds with kind of getting corporate startups and turnarounds going around the world. Lived in a lot of off the beaten path countries. It was amazing.
Let me interject really quick.
Yeah,
What is like? So you went to college, I assume, and
engineer as an undergrad.
okay, so you're an engineer because then everyone's going to want to know what she do as her undergrad.
Yeah.
You know, what's your schooling, and then what got you propelled you into, you know, being, you know, shoot shot out of the cannon right away.
You know, it's interesting that you say that. I've always felt a strong calling at different parts of my time. And when I was young, I just wanted to live in every country that I possibly could. I studied engineering because my mom had convinced me that if I studied French lit, which is what I'd really wanted to study, I wouldn't get a job. And if I studied engineering, I would get a job and live in any country that I could. And I had
She
so much
right.
Corps. I really wanted to be the Peace Corps, but I had dad. And so anyway, I stuck it out with engineering. I am glad I did because I got to live in a lot of different countries. And yeah, Japan and the West Indies and the former Soviet Union and El Salvador and Guatemala and Costa Rica and Honduras and Mexico and
All for work.
all for work.
And were you working as a consultant? So you were on different projects.
As a consultant and then later as a VP with oh, do I say it's on my resume with Kolhan, which is a pretty well-known
Yeah.
fashion
Uh-huh.
high-end back then was yeah, very
Huge.
high-end, well-known subsidiary of Nike. Yeah.
How
So
so this exciting career and you're
very
young and
exciting.
like got it all
Got
and
it
you're
all and
totally dead inside. Struggling.
struggling. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean that's so many people out there in the world, you know. So many. But also there is this like trend for people to like put some self-care first, realizing that if you start there then you can even go higher and it's not so, you know, like white knuckling, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And yes, I'm so glad, you know, yoga, meditation. I 25 years ago started a meditation practice that is daily to this day, and yoga and you know, having these practices. Self-care has become a little bit of a should, though, too. For a lot of people, self-care is not always an easy thing to do. And that's something that I found. You know, if somebody had told me at that time, Caroline, you know, you really need to like slow down and take care of yourself, I probably would have bit their head off.
What
You know, like not okay, like I just need to go faster, faster,
are you
faster because
talking
of the way
about?
I was programmed, right? And so I want to honor, that self-care is there. And I watch we have an 18-year-old at home, and she really knows how to work hard and take care of herself. And I so appreciate that. Um, and I also want to appreciate that that's not always easy for some people. There can
It's
be
not. It's
shame
not.
around self-care. Not okay to take care of myself. I have to take care of others. I should be doing this, or I should be doing that.
That's definitely a generational thing.
Yeah.
My mother's generation is definitely all about that.
Yeah.
And so my generation had to, I still grapple with it. I know I do, I know I want to do it. It's not a should,
Hmm.
but boy, if I have like 20 things to do and I can only do 19,
Yeah.
guess what goes out the window?
Totally.
That yoga class or
That
that
yoga
walk,
class.
right?
The easiest thing to toss out.
So, and that should be the first thing. That should be number one, and then I can get rid of something else and do it another day. That's the should, and that's a practice. I think it really is a practice. So you
Yeah.
intellectually know these things, but it's a practice to put you in that part of your life first. I think,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
and I think a lot of people have been reflective of that being in, sheltered in place. Um,
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people, at least people I've talked to, have been very reflective of their lives and what's important. And
Mm.
uh, yeah, it's an interesting time,
It's an
definitely.
interesting time.
So, how can people get a hold of you, Robin?
Well, they can go to my LinkedIn page. My name's Robin Athey, Robin Athey. I imagine that'll be on the interview. You can reach out to me by email. Um, I don't know, is there a way to like put an email
Yeah,
there?
I'm going to have all your
Great.
contact information and your bio and everything in the comment section on the YouTube page. But I just figured if people watching, want to jot down your email right now, they can do that right now
Yeah. So
because
it's Robin at integralgrowth.com. Integral Growth is the name of my consulting coaching company.
excellent. Well, Robin, wrapping up, is there any last words you want to say or something, you want to share? Maybe give people one tip. How about that? How about a great tip for when you're feeling anxious? What do you do?
One tip. Do we have like 2 minutes to do a
Yeah.
little
Oh,
exercise?
yeah, sure.
This is one that I love, that I picked up from someone who I respect a lot recently. There's a saying that what we resist persists.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I've learned over the years working with people with my nervous system and with others is that, bringing support to ourselves, as you were saying, really is incredibly profound. And there's this lovely exercise that I learned. This is a great exercise for just getting a sense of that. So if you make a fist with your hand
Mhm.
and just tighten it, and now with the other hand, I want you to come around and I want you to try to change it, pry it open, try to make it different, and like try to pry those fingers open, you
Interesting.
know? So what do you notice? You just try to like the fist really doubles down.
Yeah. Oh, gotcha.
People have their experience with this, but yeah. So it's kind of like what happens, like I notice like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And the critic comes in and, like, I should be this, I should do that. We try to make ourselves different, or we try to make somebody else different, our partners, and this is essentially what happens, you just like, now, if you make a fist again, and what I want you to do with the other hand is to come around and just to join it and allow your fingers to go into the same direction as your fist and just be there going in the same direction and just supporting it. And what happens with your fist? What's that?
Like a big hug.
It's like a big hug. Yeah. And what do you notice happens to your fist?
You loosen the grip.
Yeah. And that's it. This is like, how do we just kind of give ourselves a hug?
Mm.
And going in the same direction, kind of going with the grain of what's happening to join. And
I love that.
yeah, in the context of everything that's happening right now in the world, in this country in particular, how do we just kind of support what's happening, people's voices and voices that need to be heard all around, and with ourselves too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Robin, thank you so much for being on the show. And
Thank you, Caroline.
like I said, all of your contact information will be in the notes section, and your work is amazing. It really is. And our world is lucky to have what you're doing out there for sure, And it's one of these things that um, worked because I've worked with many startups. It's so needed what you offer, that person who's been in their shoes
Yeah.
and has come out the other end,
I've
the
been
other
there
side,
many times. Yeah.
and can offer credibility, because that's another thing, with founders, it's like the credibility thing. And so, like, especially when they're asking for help, it's not always the easiest thing, right? So thank you so much for all your hard work, and love that you put out there. And we will catch up with you soon another time. How's
All right.
that sound?
That sounds
Thank you very
great.
much.
Caroline, thank you. And thank you for everything
Thank,
you're doing with Caroline's causes.
oh, thank you. Well, it's my joy. So it gives me it. This is how I go in this direction. Anyway, this is Caroline with Caroline's Cause Corner. Until next time, make it a giving day.
Yay.